A quick show of hands if I may, please. Who of you were from at Wakefield last to chat? Show of hands. One person, excellent.
I just yesterday.
We're going to reprise what I said at Wakefield and give you an update as to how things have changed since then, and just generally fill you in. So back in February we had the RISC OS Show, and as the developers do, we were all chatting after the show, talking about the state of the RISC OS market, and we had wonderful customers like yourselves. And where are we going, what are we doing, have we got joint projects, and we're all talking around Pioneer or Cyber or whatever we have. And at a particular point someone said, well, what about so-and-so? And I've been asked this question before, and I said, well look, give me 40,000, we can do anything. And rather than saying that and having someone say to me, no, I haven't got £40,000 that I can give you to do a project, I said, what's it worth to you? Pause, thought, okay, I'll give you a couple of grand. So I said, fair enough, it's a promise, nothing more, just a promise. I then went and had a word with a few other people, and this got a little bit larger. So over the next ensuing few weeks, I made some phone calls, we talked to various people, and the upshot was that 6 to 9 weeks later, we were able to say, well, in promise, we've got a rather large sum of money. This is causing a problem now, actually, because as Orpheus, we don't want to look after this. Neither does Andrew, my co-partner in RISC OS Developments. He was our and we need to keep these things separate. So we decided between us that there was enough going on that we felt it was worth creating a company specifically to do work for RISC OS, nothing else. It doesn't particularly sell anything, it doesn't do anything, it's not responsible for anything, it just wants to do a project. We then sifted through everything that we talked about at the Southwest Show and said, well, this is a project that's worth doing. How much money do we need? Well, we need a programmer if we do this. And we did estimates, and the money that we were raising was getting towards this figure. We then had one very nice gentleman who had sold some armchairs. So consequently, at that point, we more than met the target that we felt we at bare minimum needed, and we have well exceeded it. We have tens of thousands of pounds in our bank account at RISC OS Developments. So it's a serious thing that we can do. And from that point, we carried on talking to people. We were then in the nice situation, which doesn't happen to RISC OS companies very often, is we have a reasonably sized bank balance, which is great. Because generally it's, well, we'd like this work to be done, but we don't have the money. And that's where you have rules bounty system. And that works very, very well. And it's absolutely great. But we want to do something that's actually larger than that, a lot larger, and it's going to cost a lot more money. We now have the ability to do that. So I then, that's sort of my side, talking to people, raising the capital to do this job. I then said to Andrew, right, okay Andrew, now we're going to go to the technical side. We need to find the programmers. So the update from when I last spoke in Wakefield back in April is that we've spoken to various programmers in the RISC OS world, some that are still in, some that are outside and just associated, and we're still finding people. You may have, I know Andrew did an announcement, I think, on the news groups as to what was happening there. I think he did that, I'm sorry, but I can't remember. It's been a bit of a blur the last couple of days. So we are now at this stage of talking to various people. We thought we had one about a month ago. Unfortunately, he got another contract with another company before he agreed to sign ours. So we've lost him. But what he has said is, in his spare time, he will do work for us for nothing, which of course, anyone who's paying a bill, that's what you want to hear. So we've got a group of people who are working with us and who are helping us with this. We have this capital, we do not want to touch it, which is why it was put into a separate company. It's a limited company, so accounts will be published and our shareholders can see things like that. But not everybody wants to invest a minimum of £1,000 or up. We've got lots of customers who know Andrew and I, and CJE, I can see Chris in the back there. He's one of our supporters. If you were in Chris's talk, he may have mentioned that earlier. So he's donated something towards us. We also have the O browser that you will have seen the announcements about, that's on our comp and my stand. And that's for someone who can come along to us and say, well, we think that what you want to do for the RISC OS market is reasonable, so I'd like to give you some money, make a donation. So we have the O browser starting at £40, we'd obviously like 80, or if you could do 100, that would be even better. So I urge you to come and see me and give me £100 afterwards, but we will start at 40, that's not a problem. And what Andrew did there was the Otter browser that you can get for free on the Rule Forum didn't have any sort of RISC OS front end. So it would sort of sit there and think about loading, and I said to Andrew, you know, I've got no idea where it is, how long is it taking, what's going on? So he very kindly wrote me a front end. And we had that just between the two of us. And then Andrew said, well, okay, if we're going to if we want to help people donate to the company to keep money flowing in, then let's give you something back. So we thought, okay, we had a word with, I think it's Chris Branston, who does the porting, and he was quite amenable to the idea. We're not changing anything of his software. All the work that he and Lee Law have done is excellent. You know, we've got quite a nice engine with that piece of software. But Andrew put the front end on specifically more for me than anyone else, but now you can all benefit from that, and that helps us with our project. If you want to know what this project is, if I've piqued your interest, come and see me or Andrew, sign an NDA and we'll tell you what it is. Until we actually have the programmer and the work is started and we now then have a time frame, we don't want to announce what it is because we don't want to disappoint people. There have been a lot of things that have been announced in the RISC OS world that have sounded fantastic, have got everybody excited, people have donated, and then it's all fizzled out. We want to do it the other way around, and this time we believe we've got the right balance and the skills between Andrew and myself and the very talented RISC OS programmers that are available to us to be able to actually do this, and at the end of it we'll then be able to give it to all of you guys. It's something that everyone who has a RISC OS computer will be able to use. Thank you for your time. If there is a question, yes.
Are you looking for more money, hoping for more money, don't want it yet, or what?
No, we will always take more money, because obviously the bigger the bank balance we have, if somebody comes along and says, well, I want to work full time in this, but I can only do it for such and such an amount, we need to know that we've got enough to cover that. Generally speaking, we could certainly employ a programmer for at least a year, possibly more, but it will depend. If it was a dedicated programmer 100% of the time, if we wanted 2 or 3 years, then we certainly wouldn't be able to reach the 3 year.
And if somebody, I or somebody puts in another 1,000 or a few thousand, what's in it for us?
You are supporting, we will tell you obviously what the project is, we'll explain it to you before you give us the money, so that you have the opportunity to say, no thank you. So we're not going to take the money unless you want to support it. But again, it's like any, it's similar to the bounties to a certain respect with Rule. It was explained to me, I had a meeting with them on Tuesday, and they were saying they have a sort of a graph idea that you have 0 to 100% at the bottom. You have 0 to, we'll call it £100,000 at the top, and you have this line in between. Now, when people donate to the bounties, it might trickle along and then go up. But basically, obviously, the more money you have, the more interest it is to a programmer to say, oh, yeah, I'll do that job for 1,500. Or all the programmers might be going, 1,500 to do that job. No, so it sits at 50%, no one's interested. Then the money trickles on a little bit more, the bounty becomes larger, and someone says, now, yeah, that's great, that goes for my trip to Poland this summer, 6 months to write it, not a problem. They go to all and say, I'd like to write the software, they complete the bounty, we'll all check it out, it's all tested, and that's how the bounty works. But it's like anything in business. If we can say, yes, we can afford to employ a programmer at standard rates, I would guess if you went to Cambridge or Oxford, where you're going to have the pick of your programmers at the top of their game, that those guys most probably don't get out of bed for less than 50,000 plus a year. Now, for the RISC OS world, that is a bit of a challenge. We now have the capability of talking to those sorts of people, which is a very nice position to be in. But obviously, again, anything with any project, you want to look at it, you are going to spend money on it right now, but you also have to ensure that it's going to be viable going forward into the future as RISC OS changes. And this project certainly comes under that heading. So we're looking at making certain that when the product's available to everyone here, that we'll also be able to say, and you'll still be able to have an update to it in 2 years' time, maybe 3 years' time. So yes, if you'd like to do that, if I think you're interested in it, come and see me, sign an NDA, and then we'll tell you what it's all.
Richard, have you had a full and frank discussion with Rule and CJE Micros and everyone else to make sure that all your efforts are dovetailing and the entire market's going in the same direction, so we don't have, in previous cases, different people doing different things?
Doing exactly the same thing. Yes, all the companies that you mentioned, most of the developers, anyone that we talk to, we ask them to sign the NDA, not so that they can't do things with other people, but so that what we're doing just remains private. But at the same time, yes, most of the development community has been spoken to. Say, I had a meeting and we signed sealed with Rule on Tuesday this week, and that's also relevant. I think I forgot to mention it. We donated and finished off the bounty to 100% for the SSL TLS. That was something we just felt that was worth going forward for Rule as quickly as possible. As an internet person at Orpheus, SSL, TLS, new TCP/IP stack, I really feel that that's absolutely necessary. But now I'm taking over RISC OS Developments talk. So, but we just felt that that was a sensible use of some of the funds that we have sitting there in the bank. So I was able to give Steve Revan a check today. So I'm going to talk to you about that bounty and hopefully say the RISC OS Developments and achieve that for them. Anything else I can answer for anyone?
Do you have, how do I phrase this without sounding back?
That's right.
An unwind plan. You've got a plan, you need a programmer, you've got a target in mind. Have you got milestones so you can say, this isn't working, we're going to evolve that?
That's an interesting one. We don't envisage having to do that. I think that's the best business plan you can have.
But this is a really
If the project that we want to do is achievable, it can technically be done. We are not inventing a new ARM processor. That's up to ARM to do.
Yeah.
So it's not something like this. This is not a research and development. This is, we have a product that we want to be able to give away at the end, so all RISC OS users that everyone will use, and we know it can be done.
Right.
So it's a question of going through and doing this and spending the money. If it should all crash down completely and we're halfway through and we have spent half the money, that half of the money has been spent. This is why it's a limited company, and that's why there are shareholders, and we will have to administer the company in the correct way if that event should happen. But what we would envisage
with our large shareholders, people who have shares in the company, is if 50% has been spent, then as far as I'm concerned, if we have 50% left and we say, no, we're calling it today, this just turned out to be an unmitigated disaster, then they will get whatever money equally divided back to them, as you would do with a normal shareholders.
Right. Thank you.
That's all right. Yes, sir.
When you say what you're doing is going to be useful for all RISC OS users, I mean, I'm using an old RISC PC because I have to run Surveillance and I'm using Virtual Acorn. So what you're doing will enhance all those or be workable on all those? Or
It will not be workable on the old tech, so Ionics and backwards, this is not a product for them. Basically, a Raspberry Pi and going forwards are the...
So it might not be all RISC OS users depending on...
If we have RISC OS users, unfortunately, that don't have more modern technology, no, this...
Well, no, but not Virtual Acorn either.
No, it will work with virtual acorn.
I will.
Yes. If I've got that one, you might want to ask that question to Andrew at Arcom, just in case I've overstepped my technical abilities, which are not as great as a lot of early developers out there.
You just said in the reply, give away to RISC OS users. Did you mean that?
Yes.
Or are you going to charge for it?
No.
Charge a nominal amount for it?
No.
Oh.
There you go. Honest answer for you. If we have to develop a support scheme, that's a different matter. If going forward, if we're successful as we envisage, and we've got to keep the product running, and we're talking 5 or 10 years down the line, at some point the capital that we've got would be exhausted. Also, at the same time, if by some miracle the person that comes along to do the product does it very, very quickly and doesn't charge us very much money, we will be left with the embarrassing position of having money in our bank account. That's something that Andrew and I, you were talking about disaster, this is maybe the plus side, it's something that we've spoken about, and we've said, well, that's why, one of the reasons why we've supported that particular rule bounty, and we put some of the capital money that we've got into that.
It seems that you've got an opportunity to get a bit more money and start a new project. I mean, that's what I mean.
Yes.
Give it away was just a surprise. I thought it was a slip of the tongue.
No, that's not a slip of the tongue. That really, you can imagine when I went to the bank to create a bank account, and I had, well look, I've got these checks here that I need to pay in. The bank went, oh, that's nice. And they go through all their routine. And the same thing with my accountant, when I was explaining to him, he said, right, so what comes in, and the money coming in on a regular basis, how much will be coming in, said the bank manager. And I said, 0. He said, yeah, on an ongoing basis. I said, 0. It took me half an hour to get him to understand that I'm taking money from one person, spending it with somebody else.
Very alien concept.
That's right, and I am making nothing back, but I am a limited company, and we are, sorry, not I, we are a limited company in business. Yeah.
Thank you.
Is this a must-have type of product, software, or is it just something you think people might like to have?
In my opinion, I think it's a product that everybody needs to have. Now I'm not going to, this is the one thing we have said, we're not going to hint. So you may have already drawn conclusions, I don't know. But if you want to talk to us about it, as I say, we'll do it under NDA. It may even be that if everybody in this room then gets NDA'd, and so does everybody else outside, it could be whatever. But as I said, what we don't want to do is disappoint. Yes, we need to infuse you to donate funds towards us, but at the same time, we want to be seen to be doing it properly, limited company. You know, we've sat down and we spent a lot of time talking about it. But yes, I think it's something important.
What do we now have is, do we give money to you, or do we give it to Brew, or both?
Well, the question was asked earlier, are we duplicating? No, we're not.
No, what I mean is, I'd like to get money to get 1 or 2 things done, perhaps.
Yeah, well, if you... Yes, if you all have a bounty that you look at and you say, oh, I need that to be done, and I would recommend, in that case, put the money with Raw. If you sign the NDA, we can tell you about it, and then you can be torn between, oh yes, I really want to give you money, and I want to give Raw money, and that's that's a nice problem to have in some respects.
So effectively, you and Rule have agreed that what you're doing is not what they're doing, vice versa.
There is no overlap, but what Rule do is basically for RISC OS, the central part that everything else revolves around. So again, this is why we felt that we would give Rule some money on that particular bounty, because it's one that we have an eye on. And doing the project that we're doing, sorry, I'll let you finish in a moment. The project that we're doing, we always envisaged that there would be things that we might actually have to go to Rule as programmers and ask them to do for us.
And following on from that, assuming that what you've got really is the most important thing going, well, given the people behind it, it seems reasonable to assume it is. Do we infer that the reason that Rule haven't already got to the bounties is just so big that they couldn't swallow it?
I don't want to take words out of Steve.
I'm not trying to probe. I'm just trying to think.
It's most probably worth asking Steve Revel if he's doing the talk for Rule last thing today. I think he's the last one on the list. Is to ask him that question so that you can actually get how Rule feel about it. It's something that Andrew and I were concerned about, that we didn't want to have duplicated. That's not to say it wouldn't be, because if some well-endowed person came along to Rule and said, I hate Richard and Andrew, they're absolute salt, I can't deal with them, would you do this project? Then we would expect Rule to say, yes, okay, we will, and it will cost this much. And hopefully they might say to us, oh, by the way, guys, somebody's paid us to do this, and it's on a formal basis, you might want to cease, and then at that point we would then put our money into doing something else. So if someone beats us to it, that's fine. We would then use the money for other RISC OS projects yet to be invented or thought about, or Rule bounties or what have you. So it all comes back into RISC OS, that's the important.
Can I ask one last question, Richard? Is when the project finally comes releasing, are you envisaging that essentially it's free, or that it's free and we can basically hang over it ourselves and do other things to it if we want to it? So you're envisaging a closed source model or an open source model for the final deliverables? And is it one of your aims that other people might leap in and say, we'd like to add whatever flashing lights to this, or whatever?
It would most probably be a combination of sort of both of those types of things. Again, that's most probably a question better asked to Andrew Ronsky, because there's most probably technical things on that. I know, Steve, that you're more technical than me from what you do in your day job. I can see where the question's coming from. But if someone came to us and said, oh, you should have so-and-so attached to that, if it's going to improve it, yes, please. You want to do that? Fine, be our guest. I'm sure we would. So maybe sort of half over. I wouldn't want to say absolutely hand on heart, yes, it will be open source. I'm not too sure. But it certainly won't be closed to the point where nobody else could add something or do something with it. As I say, that's probably a halfway house on that. Thanks ever so much.